The whispers started before Maya even entered the wedding hall. Through the decorated archway, past the strings of marigold flowers that should have celebrated joy, she heard them, sharp, cutting words that sliced through the humid evening air like knives through silk. Did you see her? In a wheelchair? What was the family thinking? Poor boy. He'll be trapped his whole life. Maya's fingers tightened on the wheels of her chair, her knuckles whitening beneath the intricate henna patterns that had taken hours to apply. Her younger sister Priya, walking beside her in a simple pink sari, squeezed her shoulder. Don't listen to them, Didi. Today is your day. But Maya knew better. At 26, she'd learned that her paralysis, a cruel gift from a car accident 3 years prior, had transformed her from a promising software engineer into something people whispered about, something to be pitied, something to be avoided. The accident had taken her legs, but society had taken something far more precious, her right to be seen as whole. The groom's family sat on ornate chairs near the mandap, the sacred wedding canopy. Maya could see her would-be mother-in-law's face, pinched and sour as spoiled milk, leaning toward her son Rahul. Maya had met Rahul twice before, both times arranged by a well-meaning aunt who insisted that beggars can't be choosers. He'd seemed kind enough, if distant. He worked in IT, lived in New Jersey, and needed a wife to complete his green card application and satisfy his traditional parents. It wasn't love. Maya knew that. But it was a chance to escape the suffocating pity of her own family, a chance to start fresh in America, a chance to be something more than the paralyzed daughter who'd ruined her parents' retirement by requiring constant care. Rahul's mother stood abruptly, her heavy silk sari rustling like a cobra's warning. She walked directly to Maya's parents, seated near the entrance, their faces already creased with worry. "This is unacceptable," the woman announced, loud enough for half the hall to hear. "You deliberately hid this from us. A wheelchair? How is she supposed to care for a home? For children? This is fraud." Maya's father, a retired postal worker with stooped shoulders and tired eyes, folded his hands. "Please, we can discuss." "There's nothing to discuss. The wedding is off." She turned to her son. "Rahul, get your things. We're leaving." The hall erupted in gasps and murmurs. Maya felt the earth tilt beneath her. The carefully constructed hope she'd been nursing crumbling like sandcastles before a wave. Priya's hand found hers, gripping tight, but Maya barely felt it. She was drowning in shame, in the weight of 100 pitying stares, in the confirmation of every fear that haunted her at 3 a.m, when sleep refused to come. Rahul stood, avoiding Maya's eyes, and followed his mother like a child called to dinner. Maya's mother began to cry, soft sobs that shook her thin frame. Her father stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The priest looked uncomfortable, fingering his prayer beads. Guests began gathering their belongings, the evening's entertainment clearly over. "Wait!" The voice cut through the chaos, deep, clear, and tinged with an accent that wasn't quite local. Everyone turned. A man stood near the back of the hall, holding the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6. He was tall, with dark hair beginning to grey at the temples, wearing a simple kurta that suggested he was a guest, but not close family. His daughter, dressed in a purple frock with her hair in 2 braids, looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "I'm sorry," the man continued, walking forward. His gait had a slight limp, Maya noticed. "I don't mean to intrude. My name is David. David Chen. I'm a friend of the family. I work with Maya's cousin at the hospital in Queens." Maya's cousin Amit stood up, looking bewildered. "David, what are you—" David held up a hand, his eyes fixed on Maya for the first time. They were kind eyes, she thought. Sad, maybe, but kind. "I've been sitting here for the past hour, and I have to say something, even if it's not my place." He looked around the room, his gaze settling on Rahul's retreating back. That man just made the biggest mistake of his life. Rahul's mother whirled around. "Excuse me? Who do you think you—" "I'm a single father," David continued, his voice steady. "My wife Lily died 2 years ago from cancer. She spent the last 6 months of her life unable to walk, hooked up to machines, barely able to lift her head some days. His voice cracked slightly, and his daughter squeezed his hand. And those were the 6 months when I loved her most fiercely, when she showed me what real strength looked like. The hall had gone completely silent. "I've watched Maya tonight," David said, and Maya felt her heart hammering in her chest. "I've watched her hold her head high while people whispered. I've watched her comfort her sister when her sister should have been comforting her. I've watched her maintain her dignity while being rejected in front of 100 people. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." He walked closer, his daughter trailing behind him, until he stood directly in front of Maya's wheelchair. He knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level, and for the first time in 3 years, Maya felt truly seen. "I know this is crazy," David said softly, though everyone in the hall could hear. "I know we've never met, but I also know that judging someone's worth by their ability to walk is the most backward, ignorant thing in the world. And I know that my daughter needs someone strong in her life. Someone who understands that life knocks you down but doesn't get to keep you there." He glanced back at his daughter. "Emma, come here, sweetheart." The little girl stepped forward, her eyes solemn. "Are you the pretty lady Daddy was talking about?" she asked Maya. Maya couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. David smiled at his daughter, then looked back at Maya. "I'm not proposing marriage right now, that would be insane. But I am proposing hope. I'm proposing that you come to America not as someone's obligation, but as someone's honor. My daughter and I have a spare room in our apartment in Queens. You could stay with us, get settled, finish your degree, figure out what you want. No strings attached, just a chance." "This is ridiculous," Rahul's mother sputtered. "You can't just—" "Actually, I can." David stood, pulling out his wallet and extracting a business card. "I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon at Mount Sinai. I can sponsor a visa. I can provide housing. And unlike some people, I can recognize extraordinary when I see it." Maya's father stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. "You would do this for a stranger?" David's expression softened. "My wife taught me something in her final days," she said. "David, when you see someone being treated as less than they are, you speak up. Every time. No exceptions, so I'm speaking up." He looked at Maya again. "You deserve better than this. You deserve people who see your strength, not your wheelchair. You deserve a chance to thrive, not just survive." Maya finally found her voice. It came out as a whisper. "Why?" "Because 3 years ago, when Lily first got sick, her family abandoned us. Said she was cursed. Said they didn't want their children exposed to death." David's jaw tightened. "A stranger, a nurse we'd only met that day, invited Emma to stay at her house on the weekends, played with her, made her feel normal when everything was falling apart. She saved my daughter's childhood. I've been looking for a way to pay that forward ever since." Priya spoke up, her voice fierce. "My sister is a brilliant programmer. She was working for a top firm before the accident. She's not a charity case." "I know," David said simply. "That's why I'm not offering charity. I'm offering opportunity, and maybe eventually friendship. Emma and I could use more of that." Emma tugged on Maya's sari, the fabric bunching in her small fist. "Do you like butterflies? I have 17 butterfly stickers. I could share them with you." Something broke open in Maya's chest, something that had been locked tight since the accident, since the months of pitying looks and lowered voices and doors closing in her face. She began to laugh, a sound that turned into a sob, then back into a laugh again. "I love butterflies," she managed to say. David extended his hand. "So, what do you say? Will you take a chance on a broken little family that's trying to figure out how to be whole again?" Maya looked around the hall, at Rahul's empty chair, at the guests who'd come to watch her humiliation, at her parents, who'd tried so hard but couldn't, protect her from a world that saw wheelchairs before it saw people, at Priya, who'd never left her side. Then she looked at David, really looked at him, at the scar on his left hand, the wear in his kurta, the exhaustion around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and shouldered burdens, at Emma, who was smiling at her with the uncomplicated acceptance that only children possess. "I'll need to bring my sister," Maya said finally. "She's in nursing school. She could help with Emma and—" "Done," David said immediately. "We have a pull-out couch." Priya let out a sound between a laugh and a cry. "Didi, are you serious?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "Maybe I'm crazy, but I've been safe and small and scared for 3 years. Maybe it's time to be brave." She placed her hand in David's. "Okay, yes, let's try." The hall erupted, some in approval, some in scandal, but Maya didn't care. For the first time since the accident, she felt something other than resignation. She felt possibility. 3 months later, Maya sat in the small Queen's apartment, laptop balanced on her knees, applying for graduate programs in computer science. Emma was sprawled on the floor beside her wheelchair, carefully coloring a picture of butterflies. Priya was at her clinical rotation. David was at the hospital, saving lives the way he seemed constitutionally incapable of not doing. Was it perfect? No, there were hard days, cultural adjustments, and moments when Maya wondered if she'd made a massive mistake. But there were also Emma's bedtime stories, Priya's terrible cooking experiments, David's quiet presence as they watched Jeopardy together, and the slowly growing realization that she was building a life, not just living one. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "Surgery ran late. Pizza for dinner? Emma gets to pick the toppings." Maya smiled, typing back a response. Through the window she could see the New York skyline, glittering with promise. She thought about the wedding that never was, about Rahul and his mother, about the whispers and the shame, and she felt something unexpected, gratitude. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you clears the path for the best thing. Sometimes rejection is redirection. And sometimes, when everything falls apart, a stranger with kind eyes and a brave heart shows you that you were never broken at all. You were just waiting for people who knew how to see.